Susan and Julian Lange were evicted from their home at 276 Running Ridge, Ojai, California on July 29, 2011. They were in loan modification negotiations with Chase Bank, paying $6,000 a month when a notice appeared on their door that their home had been sold to an insider investor and they had 3 days to leave the property. Susan and Julian faced uncaring judges as they made their call for justice in court. The case is in appeal. Meanwhile, Susan and Julian have lost their beloved home of 15 years. This is happening throughout the country. To join their fight for justice, go to www.chase.org.
I'm going to introduce Andrew, who, along with his partner Connie, are doing this film that we already mentioned. And Andrew is amazing because he is litigating himself against the banks. And you never give up, and you are so extremely well-read and experienced. So here you are.
Thank you. I will take that applause very seriously, and when I've actually earned it, I will email each one of you and say thank you. What I wanted to say was just this: there's an extraordinary sense of community coming out of this phenomenon, where I imagine everyone in this room is either in foreclosure or involved in some way, has friends, family who either have lost or who are in the process of losing their homes. And this is a huge tragedy. It's a huge crime. It's literally a crime. It has been described as the crime of the millennium. I was listening to a conversation going on earlier that was specifically to do with Chase, and this story that I hear over and over and over again: oh, we lost your paperwork, you didn't send in the documents, you need to send them in again. But I've already sent them in twice. No, I'm sorry, we have no record of that. You know, the person you spoke to no longer works with us, or whatever excuses or I don't know if they even bother to make excuses. Point is, there seems to have been an actual business model where these lending institutions were no longer in the business of lending, they were in the business of securitization. The securitization of our signatures on our notes, on documents. They were in that business. And then at the other end of that is the foreclosure phenomenon. They're not in the loan modification business, they're in the foreclosure business. It pays them more, they make more money foreclosing, the services make more money, and ultimately they get the properties. And this house we're standing in right now, it would seem, has gone. Susan and Julian are moving out. This is their last night here. And we were in here just 2 weeks ago filming, and the house was gloriously, beautifully furnished. I don't know how many of you knew this house then, but it's now stripped bare and it still looks lovely. So this is a major tragedy for this particular couple who have been here for 13 years. We were in court today, Connie and I. We started this whole game with 4 properties. We have 2 left. We were in court this morning, so it may mean that we have 1 left. And we're in court next Thursday in Arizona concerning our Sedona property. That may be the last, and it's not impossible that that'll be gone too. So one learns to just play this game. It's a game, it's like chess. It's like learn the rules. If you can afford an attorney, and you can find an attorney who knows anything about this, because it's a relatively new and complex thing that few people know about. You know, one of the real challenges, we've interviewed at least 20 attorneys, and each of them has a piece of the puzzle. But I don't believe I can name one attorney, maybe I can name 1 or 2, who have the whole picture, who are actually succeeding in this realm. In a situation where a homeowner clearly, apparently, from our perspective, deserves not to lose their home, not to be evicted, not to be thrown out, deserves to get either a loan modification or their home free and clear or whatever, because the banks are getting all of these homes free and clear. They talk about this phenomenon of, homeowners want a free house. Well, guess who's getting tens of thousands and even millions of free houses daily, every time a judge goes, bang, it's a free house to a bank. How often do you hear of a free house to a homeowner? And to a homeowner, and I'm bouncing around a bit, to a homeowner, it's not a free house. Did we put up money? Did we put up a down payment? Did we refinance ourselves? Did we then go and renovate? Did we put our sweat equity into it? Is it a home that's been in the family for decades, perhaps, that we refinanced for various reasons? Something happened, and it happened on Wall Street. It happened with the mega banks. And it happened apparently in 1999 with the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act, which was an act that was signed into law by FDR in 1932, I believe, to prevent exactly this from happening again, because this is what happened in the Great Depression. It was precisely this. It didn't happen for the next 70-odd years. And then 1999, bang, by 2005, here we are. This situation comes from the lending institutions, the banks that actually supposedly lend money to individuals so they can buy a home, and the investment banks, who are a whole different kind of bank. They're both called banks, but the one's a high-risk investment operation. Lehman Brothers was a classic example of that. And the lender, the actual lending institutions, they are two completely separate and contradictory business models. And when you allow them to be the same entity, you get this. Okay, so this is just an extreme consequence of basically the ignorance of our government, or the manipulation, if you will, of our government by those very few people who know that this is the way to massively increase their profits. So here we are. That's explained very well in the film that's being shown tonight in Inside Job. That's a very good take on understanding what happened, who pulled this one off, and how they did it, how they succeeded in doing it. I mean, right now in this government in the United States today, we have the senior executives of Goldman Sachs in particular, and others they run the Treasury. They captured the United States Treasury. It's extraordinary. Our film, which we've sort of tongue-in-cheek titled Cops and Robbers versus the People, the cops and the robbers got together, and it's now us versus them. The cops and the robbers are sort of united. The justice system and the banksters, the thieves, are now united against we the people, and we the people are apparently in big trouble. Now, Connie and I have a relatively absurd and unusual attitude, and that is that it's all good, that this is all to serve something. So the challenge of our film is to, as I think you heard the subtitle of the film, is the death and rebirth of the American dream. The death of the American dream is everywhere. It's easy. You can just track down anyone who's losing their homes, and here's a perfect example of the death. Where are the examples of the rebirth? But somehow we need death in order to have rebirth. Somehow we've got to break the eggs to make the omelet, whatever it is.
It's been a system out of balance forever because of fear that's motivated greed, that's set the whole thing out of balance. The founding fathers had a vision of us working from our higher conscience, a society built on this higher conscience. In fact, the Mayflower Pilgrims who came here had that vision. And Henry David Thoreau had that vision with civil disobedience. So that's the possibility. And the model that we're in, the Keynesian model of economics, the bottom line based model of economics, has put us in this position of just going for the bottom line. If you're going to make it, and your kids are going to make it, and your company's going to make it, and your stockholders are going to make it, you've got to go for the bottom line. It's pretty basic. I mean, I'm sure most of you are in business, right? But you people here don't compromise your integrity for that bottom line. Or maybe you have here and there, who knows? But because of a boss that's demanded it or whatever. So we believe that this death has to do with the death of fear, basically. The moving out of fear into our higher conscience, into trust, into a whole nother paradigm, which it basically is the evolutionary leap in consciousness that humanity is about to take. I don't know how many of you are keyed into that, but that's pretty much of a given for us.
We'll confess this. We just got back from the IONS conference, Institute of Noetic Sciences conference in San Francisco, where we did a 4-day shoot documenting this with the likes of Deepak Chopra and Rupert Sheldrake and Brian Swim and a whole slew of others. So our passion really has to do with humanity and consciousness and this thing that we think, you've probably all heard of the shift in the Mayan calendar and so on. So, is something going on in our species, and what the hell does foreclosure have to do with it? Is it possible that there's something here like the irritant, that grain of sand that gets in the oyster and creates the pearl? Is this perhaps a contributory factor?
Well, if you look at all the light workers that have gotten networked together through this foreclosure thing, I mean, look at these people, Julian and Susan and Margaret and Doug Gillies and Roger, and I mean, if every single one of us are on this high road. I mean, it's wild, and it's brought us all together and bonded us, to bring this light into the belly of the beast. It's over. This whole thing is over, and just bringing that light into it is going to just blow it to smithereens. It just doesn't look like it right now. But you have to understand that there is an implicate order, that this is quantum science, there is an order of things that isn't seen. And there's the explicate order of things that are seen. Well, what's explicate right now is this last vestiges of fear playing itself out in an unconscionable manner. I mean, if it weren't so unconscionable, it wouldn't be so obviously divine, in my opinion. So it's just playing itself out, and very soon, like the Soviet Union went down, right? The Berlin Wall went down. Nobody ever thought any of those would ever happen. So one day, as we keep plugging away, we keep just putting one foot in front of the other, we go and ask this judge that got our house in his hands if he'll stay the eviction until yada yada. We could stop. Today we could stop. We lost in court. The judge that we were in at a UD trial said, I can't continue this. But you can go to the other judge that's got the other case that you have and ask him if he'll stay it. This judge didn't have to tell us that. So, because his hands are tied in a UD court, which is unlawful detainer, they have a very limited scope of jurisdiction or ability. We brought up some interesting stuff to him, and he said, he didn't pound the gavel and say, you're done. He said, I'll think about it and write my decision in a couple of days. So we don't even know truly what he's going to come up with. If he's a human, he took that oath for a reason, because he believed in America. He believed in truth. He believed in what this country stands for. Maybe we got to him. Maybe the news has gotten to him enough. So he's saying there's something wrong here. There is something very wrong. And they have to do something. They are in the justice system. That's a big word, justice. So we'll see. That's what we're banking on, is that these judges will go there and take this country and this justice system to justice for all.
Sounds like they're getting the movie fired up there. Margaret, I think we're going to have you on in a minute or two. I'm great with absurd statements. I'm going to make one of my greatest absurd statements. Because the universe is always in perfect balance, try this one. The worse it looks, the better it is. So if it looks bad, what's hiding behind the bad is way better than it would have been if it were the other way around. So that's my prayer.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just absolutely absurd, that why would a human ever do this absurd thing? I mean, your whole situation is a total unconscionable absurdity. And why are you getting thrown out of court with two knowledgeable lawyers? And what's up with that?
We didn't even have lawyers. We've done our whole thing pro se because we could never afford a lawyer, and because I ended up in Chapter 11 bankruptcy with 4 properties. That would have cost a fortune. We would have probably spent $250,000 on attorneys at this point and been no better. because try finding a lawyer.
Being worse. He would have been worse.
We certainly financially would be worse off.
Yeah, because people are paying lawyers and losing their homes.
Yeah, amazing.
Unfortunately, we didn't have any money.
I can lose my home myself for free, so why pay someone to do it?
But like Gandhi, you know, we're all just putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, he knew he was on the side of truth, and he just kept going. If you ever want some courage, watch the movie Gandhi, because in that movie is a formula. You know, is those keys to just keep going. He said he was laying there, starving to death, half dead, and he said, you know, you just keep fighting, and one day you win. Truth will win. And how did he perform a miracle? Because he stayed in his heart on truth, on the vision of truth. And that's what we advise to all of you. Don't drop down vibrationally to their level, to the fear frequency. Stay, because we've written a book called The Trust Frequency, and that's a whole other thing. But just keep your vibration high and look. And when I stood in front of that judge today, I was looking at his heart, and he was looking at mine. I want to tell you, he was looking at me to say, who is this person? He looked at us both. I mean, we cut quite a figure in court, right, with old Tom Jefferson here. And, you know, and me and my little New England thing, you know, I mean, we're the stuff, right? And he's looking at us trying to say, wow, who are these people? You know, I saw him really looking at me, and I really looked back at him. So just stay in that vibe. If I was looking at him like, oh, you're bought off, you're just a horrible person, you know, if I was looking at his shadow, you know, at the part of him that might be bought off or has been or whatever, but no, I'm looking at his light, at that part of him that took that oath, that can bring justice. So who knows? But that's how we advise you, is to stay in gratitude. That's a high vibration. And stay anywhere you can. Just know that there's only love on this planet, and that it's all good, and just stay there, and it'll all be good. And trust your heart, and act according to what your heart says for you to do, and what circumstance tells you to do. Circumstance loves you more than you do, okay? Circumstance is leading you to the place where you need to be for your soul's destiny to unfold, for abundance and beauty and joy to find you. You've got to trust, and you've got to walk in alignment with your heart. Still there.
She's good, isn't she?